So let's get to the big three.
Number 3.
There were cameras all over my husband when he was murdered. There have been cameras all over me, analyzing my every move, analyzing my every smile, my every tear. We deserve to have cameras in there.
I hear you, Erica Kirk. Finally, the trial of accused Charlie Kirk, alleged killer, gets on track, as we will soon learn if we can see Tyler Robinson's fight for his life after taking Charlie's. His smirk and smiles are sickening. Once it begins, we will see an end, I hope, to the wild conspiracy theories that are ringing around this investigation.
Number 2.
Well, I think what we're seeing is the first instance of the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, which said that, don't mess around in our backyard was the old school version. And now President Trump has said, don't run bad operations with your global buddies in our backyard.
Two conflicts, one beginning and one perhaps ending. Venezuela heating up and Ukraine perhaps winding down. The latest on the two consequential problems Trump inherited but is determined to solve.
Number 1.
We saw double-digit inflation, something we hadn't seen since the 1980s under Joe Biden. So President Trump comes in, we cut taxes, expanded child tax credit, incentivized business to invest in America.
Senator John Thune with Sean Hannity last night. The economy will make or break the midterms and Trump's legacy. As he admits polls are low, he's betting on himself to turn it around. We detail his game plan right now. And joining us now, former Senator Kyrsten Sinema. Senator, welcome back. Oh, welcome.
Well, it's wonderful to be with you. And it was wonderful to meet you in person yesterday.
Yes, even though you were honest, you don't watch much television, right? You have no idea.
Yeah, I don't. I actually watch no television.
And did that hurt you as a senator? Did you sometimes miss some issues because you didn't know what it didn't.
No, in fact, I got the news faster because I would wake up and read it every morning.
Okay.
So and I can read a lot faster than I can listen. And so I actually was able to get more information faster. But the truth is, Bryan, I actually just didn't even own a TV.
Wow. Senator, I want to talk about AI because the president signed an executive order into law to make it, to put us all on the same page and make this a national push instead of an individual state push. But I do want to ask you about the economy. Where do you look for to see if it's going well? And what role is politics playing in how people feel?
Oh, that's such an important question. So after 20 years of elected service, I'll tell you, it's not hard to get a feel for how the economy is feeling. And my suggestion is go get into an Uber and ask your Uber driver. That's it. Ask your Uber driver. They will tell you the cost of groceries, the rent, cost of gas, how much profit they're making, what they think about for their kids. Are their kids are going to have a better future than them or not? So there's a lot of GDP and there's data points. And look, all of that is for people on television and news, et cetera, to talk about. But the reality is you just need to talk to regular Americans. That's it. And the easiest way to do that is hop in an Uber, ask your driver some questions about how his or her life is going and listen, like for real, listen. And that's how you can tell how the economy is going. And I'll tell you what I'm hearing right now, Bryan.
Yep.
People are concerned because the price of groceries are still too high. And of course, the rental market is really expensive right now. And that's why you see the administration doing things like exceptions on tariffs for beef and coffee. We saw that roll out just 3 weeks ago. You saw that the Trump administration is now announcing they want to do a rollout around housing prices across the country. Those are all political responses to the financial pressure that Americans are feeling right now.
So the one thing these corporations buying up housing, that's got to stop. I mean, there's got to be some type of regulation there because you got a BlackRock or they're buying these houses, taking over neighborhoods, then renting them out to people. We'll never be homeowners then, nor can you compete with corporations like this.
So, most Americans understand that the pinnacle of the American dream is to own your own home. That is the American dream, right? So I remember I was very poor growing up, Bryan. I don't know if you remember my history, but I was actually homeless for a period of time in my childhood. So for me, becoming a homeowner was it. It was like, I've made it. I've hit the American dream. And that is what Americans dream about. And so there's got to be some movement in the market where people who are renters can see the dream of home ownership and then feel it and get there. And that's I think, where the focus should go in housing right now.
I hear you. Let's talk about the AI race. So the president yesterday signed an executive order with the goal of creating one national AI rule book to wipe out the chaos of competing state laws. They had this in legislation. Both sides ripped it out. They were actually going to put this in, but they couldn't agree. So the president took things into took it on himself with an executive order. Your thoughts about why that may or may not be necessary?
Well, I do think we need to have one national standard. It's fine if there are states doing additional work on the side, as long as it doesn't get in the way of protecting Americans' rights, privileges, and expectations. So, before the executive order, you had a different standard of what AI looked like if you lived in Florida versus Indiana versus California, and that just doesn't make sense. Like, if you're an American, you should get to have access to those same rights and expectations of privacy, those same ability to have AI enhance your life. And so the standard across the nation is it's actually a really important issue. Now, the president did it through an executive order, and that's a good start. But it's my hope that Congress will come back and actually codify a realistic standard, a national realistic standard, so Americans can have peace of mind that they have access to the same protections, rights, and privileges no matter which state they live in.
So do you think the problem was it came from the White House? Why didn't Congress write it themselves? So unless they just don't feel as though they want to pass it, they don't want to take the rights away from the states. What do you think?
Well, look, I'm a huge states' rights person. the 10th, I'm from Arizona, Bryan.
Yes.
We do not love the federal government. Or actually any government, but in particular, we believe very strongly in states' rights. The issue here, in my opinion, is not about a 10th Amendment issue. This is about whether or not you as an American get the same rights and privileges depending on where you live. And look, I think Congress can come to an agreement here. It's just going to take them a little bit longer. Bryan, this is no surprise. Congress hates to act, right? They try not to, and then they wait until the last minute when they have to. And the president's and the White House's opinion is that the AI race against China is so integral and so urgent that we cannot wait. And we can't allow a state like California to create restrictions that hold back the entire industry and that make it harder for Americans to benefit from the advancements of AI.
Here's what the president said yesterday is his primary focus, cut 44.
We also know that a big part of our economy, it could be 50, 60% of our economy going forward for a period of time at least, especially during the startup, is AI and AI-based. We have trillions of dollars of construction going on, and that construction would stop, or it would certainly be, a lot of it would be halted. So, look, we're leading China. We're leading China by a lot. China knows that, and not doing this would be the greatest gift to China and other countries, but China in particular, that China has ever received.
Well, do you agree with that, number one? And number two, do you think we're beating China?
We are ahead of China in the AI race at the moment. Our models are superior. Our compute power is superior. However, that could change very rapidly. And there are a number of things that we've got to do in order to stay ahead of China in this, what I believe is a national security imperative for our country and for the whole globe. As I said yesterday on Fox and Friends, if we don't win this race against China, then China will dominate the AI models, and then Chinese values will be the values that are communicated to people all around the globe, and that's a very, very dangerous proposition.
And the problem is power, right, Senator? And the power. China will spend
exactly right.
$560 billion on grid projects in the next 5 years, up 45%. Can we match that?
We can. Now, the National Energy Dominance Council is a council that was established by the president. It sits in the White House. Its job is to coordinate a whole of government approach between all the agencies to increase domestic energy production. And in the short term, that means natural gas. In the long term, that means nuclear. Can we do it? Absolutely. But do we need help to get there? Yes. Bryan, Congress has got to put its head down and work together to do permitting reform early next year that will allow us to move faster on these projects. We have the capability to create enough domestic power to power the AI race and win it, but we've got to unleash some of these companies to do this work. And we can do that, Bryan, while still protecting all of our environmental concerns, which make us better than China.
So, Senator, looking back now and having a chance to talk to you, I mean, we just had so much respect for the way you were fighting just for logic. You weren't fighting for Republican or Democrat, and that's why you ended up an independent, perhaps. But what was it like being one of two senators, even though others claimed to be moderate, to continue to take on the White House when necessary, on the filibuster, on the Build Back Better plan, on adding 2 states, and take them on the border? What was that like for you with Joe Biden as president? You from your own party, maybe taking a lot of heat.
Well, I'm an Arizonan. I was born and raised in Tucson, Arizona, so I'm used to taking the heat. So the good news is that was something I've been doing my whole life. And Bryan, the people who know me and the Arizonans whom I served for 20 years know that I always would stand up and do what I believe is right, regardless of political pressure from any party or any people. And so for me, it wasn't hard to make the decision to do the right thing. But I'll tell you this, Bryan, in those last 2 years of my service in the United States Senate, as you'll recall, I was an independent for some of that time. I said to my colleagues over and over again, I know you're unhappy with the positions I'm taking right now, but I promise you that in less than 2 years, you will be grateful that I have done this. And that's in specific to the filibuster, Bryan. And that has borne itself out every single day. Every single day. The filibuster was designed to create comity within the Senate and to force people to work across the aisles and compromise. Neither party likes it when they're in charge, but every party loves it when they're in the minority. And I believe that tool should be there regardless of which party's in the majority to temper the passions and the excesses of either party. And that's exactly what it does. And on the other issues, Build Back Better, originally, they came out with a $6 trillion plan that would have bankrupted our country. And I said no. They wanted to raise taxes on Americans all across the country. It would have crippled our economy. I said no. And I'm really glad that I did those things because we would be in a much worse position today if I hadn't stood strong for the people of my state and country.
Senator, when was it clear to you, Senator Sinema, that Joe Biden cannot serve another term?
I never talk about the private conversations that I have with other elected officials. I know that I'm the only person in Washington, D.C. who had that rule. But so I won't share any of the personal details, but I'll tell you that it was clear to me that for 2 years that President Trump was going to win re-election when he ran in 24. It was clear to me for 2 years. And my colleagues knew it because I told them every day, and gosh, they really got sick of me saying it. And I was just telling them because I saw the handwriting on the wall. I would come home to Arizona every weekend. I would talk to voters and listen to them. And I would go back to DC and I would say to my colleagues, you guys, this is what's going to happen. This is what's coming. President Biden is not going to win another term, and neither is a replacement if he were to choose one. And they just were unwilling to see the reality. And Bryan, I'm gonna go esoteric for just a second and say this. One of the challenges I see in government is that people are so committed to their own ideas of what they want things to be that sometimes they have trouble seeing things for what they are. And the key to success is to understand what things are at the moment and then figure out how to work in that setting right there, given the reality that you face. It's practical, it's pragmatic. I know the left and right don't love it, but that is how you get stuff done.
No, I hear you wholeheartedly. I just still wonder if we're going to get to the point where people are going to go, okay, this is what I want to happen, but it's not possible. So what's the best I can get? And then people feel as though if you compromise, you're going to get primaried. And I think both parties are guilty of this, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm now sitting here as a one-time Democrat, always a moderate, now an independent, and not serving in public office. So yes, I do agree with you wholeheartedly. But the reality, Bryan, is the only way that changes is if voters change their behavior. So you know what I used to tell folks when I would meet them at either fundraisers or gatherings? They would say, what can we do to help adjust the situation? And I said, the number one thing you can do is support someone who's running for office with whom you agree with only about 60% of the time. Because that person's thinking for themselves.
Yeah.
Right? And so go support someone you don't agree with 100% of the time. That means that person's thinking on their own. You may not agree with every decision they make. I hope you don't. Because if you agree with every single decision an elected official makes, either they're lying to you or you're not thinking for yourself.
Right.
And Bryan, both of those are dangerous for democracy.
Wow, you speak in, and you know, we're up against a break. For someone who doesn't watch much television, you seem to have an instinct, because we're streaming too, of a short sound bites, right to the point, and always saying something important. Senator Sinema, is there anything that you want to make sure to, before we leave you, get across to our listeners?
Oh, I'd love to come back because there's a lot more I'd love to talk with you about. And it's been a real pleasure, Bryan.
And be open to the AI revolution, because you're at the cusp of it. Senator Kyrsten Sinema, thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. By the way, it's hard for me to say Kyrsten Sinema because I have a Kyrsten who is my middle child, but I understand what Kyrsten goes through because everyone mispronounces my daughter's name. And she always says to me, why didn't you just name me Krysten? It would have been so much easier. Back in a moment. But first things first, if you look at what the president's most focused on international relations, it is finally in our hemisphere, and it is in Venezuela. 2 days ago, the big story was the taking of the tanker containing $80 million of illicit oil that was Iranian. We've been looking at this called the Skipper, this ship, for a while, so we just fast roped onto it, took it over. And so now we're going to bring it home. And that's more pressure on Venezuela. The other thing that why it's so important for Maduro to go out of our hemisphere is because he was told to hold free and fair elections by a previous president. He held those elections. He tried to cheat, but he still lost overwhelmingly to the party of Maria Corina Machado. And he stayed in power and tightened his grip, surrounded by Cubans and Iranians and Hezbollah. We're going to allow that in our backyard for the President of the United States, led by Secretary of State National Security Marco Rubio? The answer is no. But one of the key is having something to replace Maduro with, and that is Machado's party. She got picked as the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. Would she be able to get to Norway to accept it? Yes. Why? Because of Bryan Stern and Gray Bull Rescue. And guess who joins us now? Former U.S. Army and Navy Counter-Intel Officer Bryan Stern. Bryan, welcome back.
Hey, Bryan, how are you?
Great. Could you tell me how you got involved and what you did?
It was as tough as being a ballerina at 46 and 6. I can tell you that much.
Not alike, but certainly a challenge.
We got contacted a week ago today, actually. It was last Friday around 2100, around 9 p.m., by a friend who was connected to Maria's team and asked if we were doing stuff in Venezuela. They knew we were doing stuff in Venezuela, but asked if we would, if we'd be willing to hear out a very complicated case. We didn't know it was Maria at first. We learned that it was Maria either late Friday or early Saturday morning. I'm not sure. Figured out that it was her. That changes everything. As you know, we've been doing stuff. We do stuff all over the world. We call this operation Golden Dynamite. That's her name for us. Because of who she is, this changes everything. We have a lot of things all over the world. This was our 800th mission that we've done. 800 missions. But this is the hardest thing we've ever done. This is the first thing we've ever done for someone who has a Wikipedia page, right? She's the second most popular person in the Western Hemisphere.
Which means if she spotted, it would be over. So you had to disguise her.
We had to do all kinds of things, disguise, all kinds of things, which we can't get into. But that was so that all started on Saturday. We started planning Saturday all day. Continued to plan Sunday. We deployed forward to the region. Went back to the region on Sunday, and set conditions for Monday. And we initiated operations on Tuesday. And here we are.
Some on land, some on sea.
There was a land piece, a maritime piece, a very large maritime piece, and also an aviation component as well. She had to fly to Norway from the Caribbean.
When, at what point during the operation did you feel like it was secure?
When I saw her in Norway.
That was it.
When I saw Maria hug her daughter, is when I took a deep breath, because at that point we're out of the, our piece is done. We were out of the game at that point. We actually did not do the aviation piece. We were supposed to, we were about to, we were ready for it. But for lots of really good reasons, we didn't have to. They had that sorted out. So that was better for us.
Did that have anything to do with the F-16s or the fighter jets that flew over 72 hours ago?
No. It was more about Maria has people on her team that have access to cheaper planes than we do. It was really it was more of a cost thing than anything else.
So you had to get her out. You had to get her through checkpoints, and people would recognize her. So I imagine she had to be disguised.
I don't want to get into how everything went down on the land because we still have ops going on. This is still we don't want to put sources and methods at risk. But suffice it to say, it was dangerous for her, very dangerous for her, dangerous for everybody involved, frankly.
She did not complain, you said, and it was extremely cold. And you also said the waters were extremely choppy, but that helped you. How?
So we were in 5 to 10 foot seas, depending on timing, which was miserable in a small fishing boat. I will tell you, we had on one of the boats, we had a very seasoned operator who's a very former Marine, who is a very seasoned guy, and he was vomiting for 9 hours. For perspective, it was cold, it was wet. This is happening in the middle of the night in pitch black darkness with cloud cover and almost no moonlight. And Maria didn't complain once. I've never, it was inspirational. She's been a hero of mine for years. Being asked to participate in this, let alone lead this operation, is probably the greatest privilege that I'll ever have in my career, for sure. So when I met her, I was frankly starstruck. She's a hero of mine. I know I've been following her I've been on her Twitter feed for years. To meet her and then to watch her be the Iron Lady that she is, went from I thought she was a rock star to pretty impressive.
And I'm sure that's reassurance too, because there's no doubt about it. Maduro's got to go, and she's the one that will replace. She says she's got a 100-day plan, and I believe her. Bryan, congratulations on your courage and your success. For people, if you have some money and time, go on to Gray Bull Rescue's website and help them out. They're a nonprofit just saving the good people in this world. Bryan, thanks so much.
Thanks, Bryan. Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. Hey, we are back, and with me in studio is Carine Hajjar. She's with the Steamboat Institute. She's a fellow there, Washington Post editorial board member, who's just fresh off a visit to Middletown, Ohio, right?
That's right, yep.
Who, by the way, I'm reminding me, I did go to Middletown, Ohio to sell on a 4th of July because they wanted to go to like Middle America, and they thought that would be the perfect place to go. Does that represent Middle America in many ways?
Well, it's the vice president's hometown, and I think it's a typical Rust Belt town, the type of place that he ran and was elevated to represent. I mean, the Republican Party is evolving into a party that also represents part of the working class. So this is a lot of what the president's trade policies are supposed to help, reviving manufacturing. But I have to say, people there are really hurting right now with the cost of living. Small businesses are hurting with the tariffs and higher input costs for their businesses. So it was a really interesting trip. So
it was an enlightening trip, I imagine, to see it up close and personal and not look at stats.
Yes.
So when you say products and tariffs, what products are being affected?
Well, I'll give you an example. I went to a boutique on the main drag in Middletown, which if you actually read the vice president's book, has always struggled. I mean, this is a town that's experiencing post-industrial decline in the NAFTA era, the free trade era, all of that. But especially now, if you go I talked to an owner of a fashion boutique, and she said, if this isn't like a big box store or like a online shop where I can hold on to some of the prices for the input increases for a bit. She was saying that, I have to pass those on to consumers. So clothes are going to be more expensive. She had a hat bar, for example, where you could decorate your hat. She's had to look for different vendors to help her business just to cut prices.
So in other words, the manufacturing moved out. So to bring it back, the president said, let's make it course effective to make it here. But what do you do in the interim? Well, we wait to make hats here. We wait to make shirts here and bring shoes back. Well, let's say we do have the workers. It doesn't happen overnight.
Right. And you hit on the exact problem here, which is it does not happen overnight. And if you go back to 2022, when President Biden was trying to sell Bidenomics, he asked for patience. And Republicans went wild over this. And of course, for any type of economic change, it's going to take time. The problem is that the Trump administration ran on fixing the Biden economy right away. The president said there would be precipitous price drops right away. And again, like any policy you're going with, it's going to take time to restructure the economy. Personally, I see tariffs as a tax. But either way, however you feel about them, it's hard to sell to voters that you have to struggle in the meantime when you were promised immediate relief.
So there are people that were Trump voters that were frustrated.
Yes, they were frustrated, but they were willing to wait. I think that's the difference. I met a lot of people who are just not willing to wait. Last month, the vice president said that we're on a front end of an economic boom. Just hold on and wait. You've had Mike Johnson say we need some patience, but things are going to get better when the tax cuts hit next year. And you meet a lot of folks who are frustrated with that message. They do not want to wait. They were told that things are going to get better. And they also faced higher prices under the Biden administration. So this is years of struggling in a place that has experienced economic decline on top of that. But then you do meet fans of the vice president, Trump voters. This Middletown, Ohio is in Butler County. It went over 60% for Trump in 2024. So people are willing to wait. They're willing to wait him out. But you're seeing the president's poll numbers more broadly. Even Trump voters are growing more and more frustrated with the economy. So this is really becoming a problem for the president.
It's roughly 36% approval rating. Here's what Steve Moore says his economic advisor cut for.
Here's the problem for Trump. And I'm a Trump guy, I love Trump. But people, unfortunately, in politics, perception is reality, right? And if you look at these polls, Bryan, you've been citing them. I mean, the polls do show, the Facts poll shows 57% of Americans are not rating the economy good under Trump. So he's got to he's got to keep getting out there and giving the American people the facts. So
that's going to be key. But J.D. Vance is also going to get on the road. He's also following the president on doing that. He's a different speaker. He does stick more to a structure. The president likes to weave.
Yes, yeah. And sometimes we have to think about what's a winning message and what's not a winning message. I think at one of the president's recent stops, he was saying a couple of days ago that maybe you only needed a couple pencils instead of more than that for Christmas, or you have to cut down on your Christmas gifts. And that's a tough message to sell to the American consumer, especially when your vice president is at the same time promising that we're on the front end of an economic boom. So, there seems to be a lack of coordination there. And then also a lack of coordination with broader policy. Like we were told that part of the reason that tariffs were important was for national security reasons. But this week we're talking about NVIDIA being authorized to sell chips to the Chinese, for example. Well, that's hard. It's hard to understand why we would tariff household goods and appliances from our friends around the world, and then with the Chinese, we're willing to sell them NVIDIA chips. So I think the Trump administration sort of needs to get their message straight on tariffs because voters are growing impatient.
Right. The president did notice, he doesn't like to cite poll numbers that he doesn't like, but he did kind of take that into his statement, his post on Truth Social. He says, "When will I get credit for having created with no inflation, perhaps the greatest economy in the history of the country? When will people understand what is happening? When will the polls reflect the greatness of America at this point in time and how bad it was just 1 year ago?" So he's frustrated because he knows he did a lot of executive orders, especially, including reducing regulation, increasing oil and gas, which people are seeing gas go down. They are seeing interest rates go down.
That's true. Actually, that's one thing that did come up in a lot of interviews, that the one place that people could really cite relief was on gas prices, on energy prices. But then they talk about the fact that if you look right now at the car market, people are not buying cars as much. And I ran into a few people who were talking about how it was really expensive to get their cars repaired right now. So all of these things, consumers at the end of the day are going to sit down, and Americans are going to sit down and say, well, I might be saving money on gas, but how does that compare to the money I'm spending at the grocery store?
And I just love to hear anything Democrats had to say. What gets the president is, what were you going to do? Besides saying make America affordable, how are you going to do it? Well, taxing the rich, really? We're going back to that? So we're going to tax the rich more? I don't know. We're going to blame supermarkets for gouging? We tried that. That didn't work. So if you Democrats say, try my plan, that'd be one thing. But besides raising taxes, have you heard anything?
Nope.
I really can't.
Nope. And actually, this is a bigger problem if you look at the city level. Like right now, we're preparing for Mayor-elect Mamdani to come in New York, and it was the same.
Ruin everything, even make things terrible.
Right, and it was the same type of conversation on groceries and public grocery stores. You're hearing a lot of people on the far left talking about price gouging. Well, grocery stores have tiny margins.
Yeah, I know. You talk to a before you say something so idiotic, go meet a supermarket owner.
Yeah.
And find out why are bananas so expensive? Is it because I like to charge a lot for bananas, or are they coming in high? So what the president did is said, I'm going to adjust some tariffs in Central and South America for fruits and bananas and coffee, one of the big ones.
Yeah, and prices for coffee were up, I think the stat's 20% over the last year. So people were hurting on these normal like household products. But again, like blaming supermarket owners is a ridiculous plan because they can't do anything about it.
We're talking to Carine Hajjar. She's Steamboat Institute fellow, but Washington Post editorial board member. How invaluable is it for you to go meet people? Instead of saying, hey, these are the stats, that's the bar graph, look at the market, I'm just going to go meet people. You know, they don't necessarily recognize you. They're not going to be dug in or angry at you. Just, hey, I'm a reporter. What's it like here? How valuable?
Best part of the job. And you know, I love this country, but it makes me love the country even more when you get to go around and put faces to names and places. And I was on the campaign trail during the 2024 election, starting with the New Hampshire primary. Got to spend a lot of time in New Hampshire with people, watching them engage in you know, our political process. And from there, I got to travel the country following the Republican race, and that was a blessing. It was so interesting. And I love getting the chance to do this stuff, even though I'm on the opinion side. Reporting is my favorite part of it. You know, you want to form your opinion with compassion for people's actual experiences. So I had such a great time in Middletown visiting the vice president's hometown. People were so welcoming and so willing to engage and have a conversation. And I was really grateful for that. And we'll post a video on Sunday of a lot of the people I met so you can see these Americans and what they're feeling about the economy.
I want to bring you to Venezuela. That's where your heritage is. You have family there still?
I have family from Venezuela. Yeah, my mom's an immigrant from Venezuela.
So now the President of the United States took the tanker, $80 million worth of oil. It's called the Skipper. We're going to hold it. Mm-hmm. And I believe he's going to start taking more tankers, like an anaconda, start squeezing. We also know that he's re-sanctioned his nephews of Maduro. And we know that we got the CIA on the ground and we got 15% of our Navy off the shore. Do you have any sense of what's going on in there? And everybody knows he's got to go. I mean, there's no other ending to this operation with him staying in power.
Well, let's zoom out. If he doesn't go, if he can stick it out longer, I mean, this is a really big problem. That just entrenches his power even further. So we've sort of
scared down America.
Yeah, exactly. So he has. This is going to be a really big foreign policy debate going forward. I mean, we set a red line, and it's going to be important that we can negotiate to get him out of there. But I think pressure is important. Now, there are different ways to exert pressure, and I think going after their oil is a really great way. First of all, this tanker was sanctioned. It's been working with the Iranians. In 2022, it was helping bring revenue to Hezbollah. And if you look at a socialist regime like Venezuela, their economy is completely dysfunctional. The only thing that keeps them going and able to continue to prop up the economy, help the poorest people even a little, and everyone is struggling there. Nobody has a good life there, but it's because they're sitting on one of the largest known oil reserves in the world. It's like a jackpot if you're a socialist dictator, because you can keep eking it out little by little. But you know, people are really. I know personally that people are really struggling there. They have terrible lives there.
8 million have left.
Yeah, 8 million. It's crazy. 8 million have left. And so, you know, I think going after tankers is a really effective strategy because, again, this is the lifeblood of this murderous regime. And it's more effective than striking the boats, I think. I mean, like that got too messy for the administration, and they're going to have to own up if there were any mistakes made there. They are still doing it, so they're not going to stop. I don't think they're worried about it. But the good news is, you don't say, well, I wonder what would happen if he left. You know exactly what will happen. Maria Corina Machado and her party would take over. They say they're ready. Here she is after her harrowing escape we just heard the details of from the Grey Bull rescue. So here she is in Norway, cut 11.
I want to speak to the Norwegian people, to European people, to the Venezuelan people. I would say to all citizens of the world in this hour, and I assure you that I am very hopeful Venezuela will be free, and we will turn a country into a beacon of hope and opportunity of democracy, and we will welcome not only the Venezuelans that have been forced to flee, but citizens from all over the world that will find a refuge as Venezuela used to be decades ago.
So she says she has a plan for the first 100 days. She knows exactly what she wants to do when she gets in. I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be easy, but I will say this is a lot different than Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya. She published her plan with us at the Post on the opinion page. And, you know, one of the things that I really admire about her is she's made the case so clearly
that a stable, democratic, and free market, market-oriented Venezuela is better for us, better for the hemisphere than what we have going right now. If we're able to trade and, think about their oil industry, and if it's actually stable and more productive than it is under the terrible state control right now, imagine the boom that would come from that, not only for them and the stability it would bring them, that also brings stability to immigration. That's less of a strain for countries receiving Venezuelan migrants right now. But it's also just an economic boon for the entire hemisphere.
Yeah, and she would take over. The question is, there are cartels, there's going to be gangs, it's going to be messy.
Mm-hmm.
How do you dislodge the military? How do you get the loyalty of the military away from Maduro, especially when he's surrounded by Cubans and there's all these spies around? They say there's over 100 Venezuelan officers who have been arrested, suspicion of wanting to oust Maduro. So there's a lot of fear among the military about their welfare if they flip.
This is the trickiest part, right? This is where the big question mark comes in. But I have to believe, one, that she'll get help from friends and allies, like the Trump administration has been very supportive of her vision, but also, these officers there's only so much money that you can dole out with such, again, poor management in this country. And these officers are probably struggling. Their families are probably struggling, and they're seeing everyone around them suffer. At some point, you have to hope that people will see the light on this.
And Maduro's actions, I don't study this guy, but he's acting absolutely like a child, dancing around, the people behind him wearing weird T-shirts.
Yeah.
How do you explain this? Is he melting down? He's trying to show he doesn't have a care in the world.
Yes, it must be that you're seeing these very bizarre press conferences. I think the latest is he was singing a Bob Marley song to a crowd.
Yeah. That was "Don't Worry, Don't Be Happy." I think that was somebody else. Do you know, Alice? I know you like music. You have jukeboxes at your house.
Oh yes, you're right.
Right. Yeah. Don't worry, be happy.
Yeah, you're right. But anyway, the point being that this guy's swaying around and singing and clapping, and everyone is smiling around him. Well, people in your country have been starving. You've been jailing journalists. You've been jailing members of the government. People like Maria Corina Machado have to be in hiding and then go through these harrowing extractions to be able to accept her Nobel Peace Prize. This is not the friendly type of regime that he's trying to project it as.
I hear you. Carine, great to see you. Thanks for doing this. Your prediction on where J.D. Vance will be a year and a half from now, still as a front runner, do you think get the nomination? Do you get the sense?
Well, I think it's going to come down to the economy. He's promised that we're on the front end of an economic boom, and the economy is one of the biggest political indicators of a winner versus a loser. If he can deliver that boom, but things are looking tricky. And
oust Maduro, if he's the vice president of a winning administration, that's your best calling card.
Well, a foreign policy win like that doesn't hurt.
Carine, thanks so much. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Back in a moment.
There are people who have been prosecuted and who have been sentenced. If there was a linkage in the money that they had stolen going to terrorism, then that is a failure of the FBI and our court system in not figuring that out and basically charging them with these charges.
So you see, she got a softball interview from Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation. That is Ilhan Omar, and she's talking about the Somalis, 80 plus, at minimum, involved in the fraud of the pandemic funds, the fraud when it came to social welfare funds and various programs, that things like autistic money for autistic children, things like Feed America programs started by Ilhan Omar, and she's blaming the FBI for not following through. Listen, that's one of your staffers that was involved in this. The restaurant that said they served 18,000 meals in a 35-table restaurant is a place that you had multiple events that says they're friends of yours, and nobody's more important in the Somali community than you. Are you going to tell me in your constituency, in your district, you had no idea this was going on? Griff Jenkins joins us now, Fox and Friends Weekend, getting set to do 8 hours. Griff.
Well, we're going to go deep into this story, Bryan, because just about an hour ago, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent put a tweet out saying that he is now going to issue a geographic targeting order on the money service businesses, a GTO on the MSBs. Sounds technical, but what it is it's going to be the Financial Enforcement Division of of the Department of Treasury is going to really try and trace and do the old, remember the saying, follow the money. Well, that's what they want to do. too. And so for Ilhan Omar to say, well, if money went to terrorists, then it's the FBI.
Blame the
dropped
FBI.
ball. No.
Gotta be kidding.
Secretary Bessent saying, you know what? Let's find out. And so there's a piece up today on FoxNews.com talking about within the Somali community, they use a somewhat shadowy financial system called Hawala, which is intended to, when Somalis make money, they want to send it back to relatives' home. They want to do whatever.
And isn't it supposed to be for charity? Is that a word for charity?
Oh, yeah. But they're trying to, avoid the paper trail, not going through normal banking services so that there's less of a footprint of it. And so this is what Bessent wants to get to the bottom of. And, to be fair, so far, all the prosecutions of 60 plus people, most of whom are Somali in the fraud investigations that have happened to date, did not have ties to terrorism.
So here's the tweet
there.
you're referring to. Egregious fraud, 1 hour ago. Egregious fraud in Minnesota has cost taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars, actually $1 billion, by the way, including funds sent to Somalia through many money services, businesses, which provides financial services outside of Formula Bank. Under President's leadership, Treasury will not stop until we get to the bottom of it. And by the way, it says show more, so let me show more. To the end, Treasury will soon issue a geographic targeting order, GTO, as you mentioned, to enhance reporting requirements within FinCEN, financial enforcement. Thank you. Then important tool will be used to make sure information regarding any illicit activity is quickly reported to them. You made it available to our law enforcement. CBS does this story today. Obtained dozens of files and photos that reveal how Minnesota fraudsters blew through hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars in one of the biggest COVID-era fraud schemes in American history. They have this. At sentencing of a defendant, they said they used taxpayer funds for cars and the Maldives vacation. This is a 24-year-old, where this 24-year-old, and they name him, it's unpronounceable, where others saw a crisis and rushed to help. You saw money and rushed to steal, the judge said. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison in order to pay back $48 million. Noor is one of dozens who siphoned hundreds of millions of dollars. But look at the programs they took it from. A confirmation they took it from. They took it to get lakefront property in Minnesota, receipts of wire transfers to China and East Africa, first-class tickets to Istanbul and Amsterdam, a confirmation of an email for an overnight stay in a villa in the Maldives, and a 2021 Porsche. Stacks of cash, pictures of stacks of cash texted between defendants.
Bundles of cash, luxury cars, resorts in the Maldives. Come on. I think the best part, and I applaud CBS for doing this, they went deep into many of the investigations and prosecutions of these individuals. I think the line that stood out of the CBS reporting more to me than anything was at one point, one individual was saying to the other one, these are Somali fraudsters, saying, you're quote, going to be the wealthiest 25-year-old Somalian, inshallah, God willing. And so, they were brazenly doing this because it was there for the taking. But I do think, as you were just reading that sort of long tweet from Secretary Bessent is significant because FinCEN is this criminal investigation enforcement division that goes after people you think of like white collar crime or whatnot. Well, this is going to take an international track and they're going to try and build some paper trail of where all of this cash went. Because at the end of the day, one Porsche, a vacation to the Maldives, and a lakefront property, that's not $1 billion. Where did all the money go?
And did it go to Al-Shabaab, which is an affiliate of Al-Qaeda? Now, that's what Chris Rufo says it ties to, but that's what we're great at that. One of the reasons why we were successful in the war on terror is unwinding the money. Right. Finding out where it was going, where it was from, and where it was going. So if you think about it, that money goes to Somalia. And then Al-Shabaab gets it. It goes right to the Middle East. It goes over to Europe. And this helps fund some of the terrorist activities that are hurting the West.
Right. And, it's also, if you broaden it a little bit, this is part of what we're doing with regards to Venezuela is built upon the ability to us follow the money. We're following the money, the Cartel del Soles, the Cartel of the Suns that Maduro allegedly is the kingpin leader of. They follow, and it's not just Venezuela, the Mexican cartels. That's how we've caught some of these big guys, by following that money trail. And what's startling to me is that while you had years of this fraud in the Somalian community in Minnesota, why wasn't Biden's Treasury Department trying to figure out, wait a minute.
You know, they did. You know, it turns out the investigation started under Biden, and they started to discover that the governor was punishing whistleblowers.
Right. So not going after the actual criminals, but going after those that are trying to expose it. Look, I think,
do you want to hear the name of these companies?
Yeah.
Think about this. Do you want to be evil personified? They were taking money from a program called Feeding Our Future, a nonprofit to give money to food to the poor. It claimed federal funds there, and they used them for other purposes. Partners in Nutrition, a nonprofit sponsored multiple meal distribution sites for those people, the poor people that were eating terribly and wanted to eat more nutritiously. They took money from Adult Day Services, S&S Catering, Lake Street Kitchen. They took money from Housing Stabilization Services and various other charitable claims. So this is evil.
Robbing from children,
yes.
Elderly services. I mean, I think, as people learn more and more about this, with regards to Governor Tim Walz, he at very best was incompetent to not have really gone after it harder, or he's corrupt insofar as looking the other way and allowing it to happen for fear of trying to label an entire community, the Somali community, racist or we're being unfair by going after him. At the end of the day, this is like a Ponzi scheme on steroids.
2/3 of the people, or 9/10 of the people, are related to some type of Somali heritage, whether they're legal citizens, green card holders, or here illegally. So that's important to point out, especially because I believe 80% of them are still on some type of social welfare. When you come to this country, you can't spend 10 years on social welfare. That's not the way it works. We used to give nothing. We used to have to prove that you had a job before you got here, you go back on the boat. I mean, we've overcompensated with money we don't have.
We have, and it doesn't get talked about very much, but under the 4 years of President Biden's border crisis, one of the things that was not enforced was the work requirement for people that were under temporary protective status. It had TPS. Venezuelans had it, and Somalians had it. It's going to be interesting, too, to see if they'll follow the people that try now and self-deport. Remember, we've had 2.5 million people leave the country after this administration has been encouraging that, even giving them a stipend to go. You wonder whether some of the Somalis that have not been charged, that know they're going to eventually be found out, will try and get out of the country before we get them.
Yeah, we'll find them and we'll have their trail, and that'll tell a different story. And I wonder how much goes right back to Ilhan Omar, who's suddenly worth millions of dollars, who's probably should be making $200,000, $300,000. What do you make in Congress? $300,000?
No,
200?
200. I would have to look at the latest numbers, but no, they don't. They don't make enough money to live a lavish lifestyle. That's why they're serving their country, right? A lot of people make their money and then choose to not make much money for a few years and serve their country, either administration or Congress. But that's totally flipped now, and it's not just Ilhan Omar, the number of lawmakers that are getting wealthy by coming to Washington. But I do think, with regards to her, and that soundbite is so key that you played opening up this segment, which is she wants to blame the FBI. Yeah. She'll come up with someone else to blame because ultimately she knows that she has got to defend even the criminal behavior of that community in Minnesota.
All right, I want to cover one more topic, and that is the New York Times, I guess, through Ezra Klein, has declared that Gavin Newsom, and according to polls, he's right, is the front runner for the Democratic nomination. He's up 6 to 8 points with his approval rating in California, even though I can't name one positive thing he's done except attack Trump. Now with Ezra Klein, he talks about, I guess he's blaming Trump for the poverty and homelessness in California. Try to make sense of this, Griff, if you can. Cut 50.
Savage's view is that California is a kind of hellscape, but there are some set of problems that from his perspective are visible, that from your perspective are harder to see.
Well, I mean, the affordability crisis, he's 100% right. Mm-hmm. The poster child of our failure as a state is the issue of poverty that's out on the streets and sidewalks as it relates to encampments and homelessness.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that's the problem. You said you were going to solve homelessness. You increased it.
It's so rich that you have not just Gavin Newsom, but you have pretty much every Democrat in Washington rallying around this affordability issue, because here is a crisis of poverty created under Gavin Newsom's leadership. In this case, inflation under President Biden. And yet Democrats are saying that they've got the prescription, the solution. Somebody had a great line. They said, you can't be an arsonist and a fireman at the same time. And so that's going to fall flat. What's fascinating to me, though, is as we see Gavin Newsom continue to be out there, and look, to be fair, he's a good politician insofar as he's out there, at every turn trying to take on Trump and trying to do memes and sort of imitating him. He's trying to play the game more so than I think some of the other people that, like Kamala Harris, like you look at her and you're like, what are you doing? There's a DNC winter meeting. Newsom's there. Harris is there. We'll see what comes of it. But at the end of the day, what's fascinating to watch, keep your eye on these progressive primary challengers.
Yeah,
because
in the House.
At the end of the day, Gavin Newsom's biggest threat to him getting the nomination is a guy named Bernie Sanders. And he is never going to be president, but he is a kingmaker insofar as
now he is too old.
Now he's too old.
But he's got to get somebody in.
But
there.
He's still a kingmaker, getting these progressives on the heels of Mamdani's victory.
Well, here's what's scary.
Primary races.
Here's what's scary. If someone does get the nomination with Bernie Sanders' help, they'll end up like Joe Biden, who has to sacrifice any type of moderate agenda for that left-wing green agenda, which is, by the way, dead in the water. That's one of the most undertold stories. The green, the new green scam, maybe severe a scam, but all that stuff, all the renewables, got to save the planet. We don't have much time. The oceanfront properties all going to be wiped out. The world's going to end. Kids are throwing jelly at Picassos in order to get our attention. Oh, by the way, not really going to happen. We overstated it.
Yeah.
Really? Really, you ran on that. You jammed the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the new green scam, down our throats for all these years, Solyndra on down, and now you're admitting you wasted our money, our time.
Democrats lost in 2024 because progressives took the party over and Americans didn't buy it across party lines. Now you're seeing Democrats trying to take it over again with progressives.
Michigan coach in jail at this hour. Not only does he lose his job for an inappropriate relationship, then he gets jailed for an attempted assault. We don't know the details, but it seems to be at his girlfriend's. Here is Rich Eisen on what he was learning as he talks to Adam Schefter of ESPN.
Something this week developed that the school felt like it had irrefutable evidence and was left no other choice.
I am gutted. I am shocked. I'm dismayed. I'm depressed. I'm disgusted. Every single emotion that you think I would have, I've got. It took no less than 90 minutes after Ohio State thumped the University of Michigan in the Big House just a couple of Saturdays ago. It took no fewer than 90 minutes for me to hear the rumor about this.
That suggests, and that's really interesting coming from Rich Eisen, he's a well-sourced guy in the sports world. That suggests that the secret of this affair, this mistress on the team, was an open secret in Ann Arbor. That's what that tells me right there. And you wonder, well, had Michigan won, would this have ever come to light?
Oh, wow. They say donors were out because they were 9-3 after being 8-5, replacing Harbaugh, who won the national championship and beat Ohio State finally. So now they're looking for a replacement. They might be grabbing Alabama's coach. But the question is, he goes over, it looks like he went over to the girlfriend's house and he had a knife. And they said murder-suicide. That's probably where that could have been heading. That's what TMZ is saying and some others are saying. I don't know. He's in jail at this hour. I've never seen someone's life crater in a shorter period of time than this guy's.
100%. And if you listen to those TMZ releasing the 911 dispatcher call, he starts at his wife first call saying that my husband lost his job, he's got a knife, he's suicidal. And then he goes over to the assistant or the staffer, which we believe to be the mistress, the girlfriend. So we'll see what details we learn about that when he makes a court appearance. We might learn a little bit more about it. But you do wonder, looking at the reporting on the fact that apparently this executive assistant had their salary greatly increased 50% or more. That's the type of thing, if you know your boss is having an affair in the office, it doesn't really affect you. But then if you learn it's an assistant, a lowly assistant that's getting a lot of cash out of it, and you work inside the organization, you're not happy.
Right. Griff Jenkins, thanks so much. You'll be talking about this weekend, right, on Fox and Friends?
That's right, Fox and Friends weekend. We're going to have a great show. We got Kayleigh McEnany, Mike Pompeo, a whole list of great people.
6 to 10, Saturday and Sunday. Don't move.